in the unincorporated areas. And we are also the lead agency for the draft programmatic environmental impact report, or program EIR, for the proposed project. Here is today's agenda. First, we'll have brief introductions of the Metro Area Plan team, some of the representatives here. Next, we will go into some of the requirements of the California Environmental Quality Act and better explain the purpose of today's meeting. Then we'll go into more detail about the project. And finally, we'll make sure to allow time for questions and comments. At today's scoping meeting, we have representatives from the Department of Regional Planning, DUDEC, who is our project and environmental consultant, and we also have our Spanish translator. Joining me from the county today is my co-lead, Tina Fung, on the MAP project, and she will help me answer questions at today's meeting. From our consultant team are Kristen Starbird and Brandon Whalen Castellano from DUDEC, and also Marina Sorisi. Oh, I'm so sorry, Marina, I'm gonna mess up your last name. Sorisi Ferrero, providing Spanish translation. At this time, you should be able to see a video of the speaker as well as our PowerPoint presentation. If you would like to hear this presentation as well as the questions and answers in Spanish, again, please click the interpretation globe icon at the bottom of your screen and enter the Spanish channel. If you have any technical difficulties getting to the Spanish channel, please feel free to use the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen and let us know. And now Kristen Starbird from DUDEC will start her portion of the presentation.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for taking the time to attend the scoping meeting for the Metro Area Plan project. I'm Kristen Starbird, and I'll be presenting an overview of the project, as well as discussing any requirements to comply with the California Environmental Quality Act, or CEQA. The purpose of this meeting is to receive feedback from the public about what environmental topics should be considered during the preparation of the draft program EIR. To provide comments about the scope and content of the EIR, please mail or email your written comments to Ms. Gutierrez at the County Department of Regional Planning. Her address and email are included in the notice of preparation and also included at the end of this presentation. This slide presents a guide about how to provide a comment or a question at this meeting. At the end of our presentation, the county will open the meeting up for questions and discussion. Once the presentation is completed, if you'd like to submit a written question, please click the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen and type in your question. If you'd like to provide a verbal comment, please click the raise hand button and Brandon will unmute you and you'll have 2 minutes to provide your comment. If you are joining us over the phone, please click *9 to raise your hand. And when Brandon calls the last 4 digits of your phone number, click *6 to unmute yourself and you will have 2 minutes to provide your comments. Importantly, you do not need to ask questions during the scoping meeting. You can submit your questions or comments in writing at any time during this 30-day public review period for the notice of preparation, which ends Wednesday, March 16th. A written summary of the comments made at this meeting will be included in the draft EIR, along with all other written comments received during this public review period. Also, a recording of this scoping meeting presentation will be made available on the county's website within a week, so feel free to view this meeting again if it's of interest to you or anyone in your community. The project is comprised of 7 unincorporated communities in Los Angeles County, including East Los Angeles, West Rancho Dominguez, Florence Firestone, Walnut Park, West Rancho Dominguez Victoria, West Athens Westmont, and Willowbrook. Collectively, these 7 communities are referred to as the Metro Planning Area, which is one of the county's 11 planning areas identified in the general plan. The proposed project will serve as the overarching planning document for these 7 communities. And these communities are also referred to as the project area that we'll be talking about tonight. The primary goals of the project are to consolidate overlapping plans and update existing land use policies to eliminate duplication, to prioritize equity and environmental justice in its policy recommendations, to encourage development of new green spaces and recreational facilities, to implement zoning recommendations from the recently adopted housing element update with an emphasis on addressing the need for affordable housing, and facilitate employment through neighborhood commercial opportunities and transitioning to clean industrial and life science facilities. Now I'm going to give a brief overview of the California Environmental Quality Act, or CEQA, which is the state law that governs the environmental review of the proposed project. The primary purpose of CEQA is to evaluate the potential for environmental impacts of a proposed project and then propose ways to reduce or eliminate any significant environmental effects. So in summary, CEQA's goals are to inform decision makers and the public about the potentially significant physical effects on the environment of a project, to identify ways to avoid or significantly reduce environmental impacts, prevent significant avoidable impacts through feasible alternatives and/or mitigation, and if a project is approved with significant impacts, disclose to the public the reasons why. The purpose of a scoping meeting is to facilitate consultation between the lead agency, which is the County of Los Angeles, and responsible agencies, trustee agencies, adjacent cities, public transit agencies, as well as interested organizations and individuals. The objective is to help determine the scope and the content of the environmental information to be analyzed in the EIR. Importantly, this is an information gathering meeting. No decisions about the project are going to be made during this meeting. This is not a public hearing, and the county is not taking any public testimony on the scope of the project. But rather, we encourage you to provide the county with your written comments or questions related to the potential environmental impacts of the proposed project scope and on what you think is important to be included and analyzed in the program EIR. This slide provides an overview of the CEQA process for the proposed project, as well as the anticipated schedule for the completion of the EIR. As you can see, the opportunities for public input are highlighted in yellow. Importantly, we're at the very beginning of this process. We are currently within the 30-day window of public review of the notice of preparation. And this public review period is the first opportunity for input into the CEQA process for the EIR. Additionally, the Metro Area Plan is currently being prepared, and the county is conducting ongoing outreach in all of the planning area communities. It is anticipated that the Metro Area Plan and the EIR will become available for public review in September and October of this year. At that time, the EIR and technical reports will be available for a 45-day public review period. Upon completion of this review period, the county will review and respond to all public comments received on the EIR that relate to the environmental impacts of the project. Upon completion of the responses to the public comments for the final EIR, public hearings at the Regional Planning Commission and ultimately the Board of Supervisors will be held to review and consider approval of the project and the draft program EIR. So this slide provides an overview of the general content that you'll see in the program EIR. You're going to see a chapter on the environmental setting, which is the baseline condition for the impact analysis. a project description that outlines the goals and objectives of the project. There will be an analysis of direct and indirect and cumulative impacts of various topical chapters. The EIR will identify ways to avoid or reduce significant environmental impacts, including setting forth mitigation measures and alternatives to the proposed project. It will include effects found not to be significant, as well as the organization and the persons consulted in the preparation of the document. This slide lists the environmental topics that will be analyzed in the draft EIR. Each of these topics will have its own chapter and will include an evaluation of the environmental impacts of the metro area plan. I'll now provide a summary overview of the components of the project. The proposed project is a community-based plan that focuses on land use policy issues that are specific to the unique characteristics and needs of the metro planning area. The map will include updates to various community plans, transit-oriented districts, specific plans, and community standards districts, and will serve as the basis for a future capital improvement plan. The project will include area-wide goals and policies that address topics including land use, public space and recreation, mobility, environmental justice, climate adaptation and resiliency, cultural and historic resources, and economic development. The project area is currently subject to numerous and often overlapping plans and policies, and this metro area plan will create an area-wide implementation program to simplify and streamline existing regulations. The project will include community-specific chapters as needed to address planning issues that are unique to a particular community and can't be addressed through area-wide programs. The Florence Firestone Community Plan will be reorganized and incorporated into the Metro Area Plan as a community chapter. And finally, the project will include an updated land use policy map that utilizes the general plan land use legend and updates the zoning accordingly. For a little more detail on the updated land use policy and zoning map, this is going to include several land use changes. First, it will incorporate the residential land use policy changes that were identified in the housing element update, which allows for additional housing to accommodate the county's Regional Housing Needs Assessment, or RHNA, allocation. Next, to maintain consistency between zoning and land use policy, it will redesignate any A1, which is light agricultural, zoned parcels that do not already allow for residential uses to be rezoned to R1 for single family residence. And thirdly, it proposes to redesignate certain industrial areas with a new land use designation of industrial research to facilitate the development of clean industrial and life science facilities within the communities of East Los Angeles, Willowbrook, West Rancho Dominguez, Victoria, and Florence Firestone. The project goals will be executed through 3 primary actions, including a general plan amendment, amendments to Title 22 Planning and Zoning Code, as well as zone changes. So first, for an overview of the general plan amendment, as described above, the project would be established as the primary planning document for the metro planning area. Chapter 3 of the general plan would be revised to add guiding principle number 6 to promote strengths and community voice and equity outcomes. And the East Los Angeles Community Plan, Walnut Park Neighborhood Plan, and West Athens Westmont Community Plan would all be rescinded or eliminated, and land uses would be governed by the metro area plan. Any community-specific policies will become chapters of the Metro Area Plan.
Kristen,
Yes.
can I pause you for a minute? We're having some problems with the Facebook live streaming.
Okay.
So could you make Brandon the host and so that he can help start it?
Sure.
Or Eric.
No, it can't be me. It has to be.
Okay.
Brandon, you
Apollo-
are a co-host, but you need to be the host. Make host. Okay.
Already. And now.
Should I
Okay.
continue?
Apologize. Eric, what do I need to do? Oh, go ahead.
Okay, please, can we go ahead and let Kristen continue now while you guys figure out the rest? Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kristen. Thanks,
Sure.
everyone, for your patience.
Additionally, for the general plan amendment, chapter 6 of the land use element would be amended. The proposed industrial research land use designation in the general plan would be added to facilitate the development, again, of clean industrial, small scale manufacturing and life science facilities in areas that are close to residential communities. And to add a new or amend the existing land use designation in the general plan to allow neighborhood scale retail and commercial, such as corner stores and neighborhood accessory commercial units, or ACUs, as I'll refer to it for the remainder of the presentation, on corner lots in residential areas. Regarding zoning, there would potentially be corresponding zone changes in order to be consistent with the proposed general plan land use changes that we previously described. Lastly, Title 22 of the County Code would be amended to revise 6 existing community standards districts and establish an area-wide standards district, to codify the existing Connect Southwest LA and Willowbrook specific plans to be consistent with Title 22 numbering, to create new development standards for low to mid-density housing, such as duplexes, and also to update design standards for the proposed industrial zone, open spaces, and for ACUs, or small neighborhood commercial developments in residential areas. The remainder of our presentation includes an overview of the preliminary land use changes we've discussed so far. These draft land use maps that I'm going to be presenting identify potential locations for where land use changes would occur, including the implementation of the housing element update rezoning, the industrial land use rezone, and the potential locations that would allow for ACUs, again, accessory commercial units. These maps that I'm about to show are very draft and subject to change through the Metro Area Plan preparation, but have been provided in draft form to present a visual depiction of the proposed change areas within each community. This map of East Los Angeles depicts areas rezoned as mixed use through the housing element update. This map of East Los Angeles identifies areas recommended for ACUs and areas recommended for rezoning to a new industrial zone. This map of East Rancho Dominguez depicts areas rezoned as mixed use, R2, and as R3 through the housing element update. It also identifies areas that would be rezoned from A1 to R1. This map of East Rancho Dominguez identifies areas that would be recommended for ACUs. This map of Florence Firestone identifies areas that would be recommended for ACUs and areas recommended for rezoning to a new industrial zone. As a separate project, the Florence Firestone Transit-Oriented Development Specific Plan and associated draft EIR are currently available for public review on the county's website. The allocation of housing as set forth in the housing element update is being addressed through that draft EIR and is therefore not visually depicted in this presentation. However, the Metro Area Plan will also include an environmental evaluation of all housing allocated within the Metro planning area. This map of Walnut Park depicts the rezoned areas that are mixed use through the housing element update. This map of Walnut Park identifies areas that would be recommended for ACUs. This map of West Athens, Westmont depicts areas rezoned as mixed use through the housing element update. It also identifies areas that would be rezoned from A1 to R1. This map of West Athens, Westmont identifies areas that would be recommended for ACUs. This map of West Rancho Dominguez, Victoria depicts areas rezoned as mixed use through the housing element update. This map of West Rancho Dominguez, Victoria identifies areas that would be recommended for ACUs and recommended for rezoning to a new industrial zone. This map of Willowbrook depicts the areas rezoned as R2 through the housing element update. And lastly, this map of Willowbrook identifies areas that would be recommended for ACUs and recommended for rezoning to a new industrial zone. This concludes our overview of the proposed project. Again, if you would like to submit written comments on the scope and content of the draft program EIR for this project, please submit your comments in writing to Erica Gutierrez at the address shown on this slide. Also, the notice of preparation for the project is posted on the county's website if you'd like more information there. And the address is also on that NOP. Importantly, there will be future opportunities for the public to provide feedback on the Metro Area Plan. Additionally, you can always refer to the county's website for postings of notices and future documents related to the Metro Area Plan. Please keep up with the latest from the Department of Regional Planning on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. We'll now open up the meeting for comments and discussion. I'll leave the presentation on the webinar attendee guide for your reference. Thank you for your time and for participating in the scoping meeting. And Brandon will serve as moderator for tonight and will begin our discussions.
Thank you, Kristen. For those who would like to verbally speak a question or a comment, please raise your hand. For those that want to type in their question, please use the Q&A and I'll alternate. So right now we have a Q&A. Where can we access the maps and slides? Pat?
Yeah, I can answer that. The county does have the website. I think we had it on the last page. If you guys could bring that up real quick and flash it. And we can also type it into the Q&A. Oh, not the email, but the website. Yeah, there you go. Planning.lacounty.gov Metro Area Plan documents. We're gonna post. Oh, okay. Erica is also posting. That's the general website, and I think the slides will be either on the documents page or the events page. And we will also be sending out an email blast following, just to let people know when the recording's been posted and the slides. So. And
Pat, I actually think the slides are posted right now. I think they're already available on the county's website.
Yes.
Oh, okay. Well, there you go. Okay. Erica is helping us respond to questions in the chat. Oh, it's in the chat. We need to put it in the Q&A.
I did respond to another comment that had the same
Okay,
question. So
great.
so far we don't have any other comments or questions. You can ask your question again. You can ask your question in the Q&A, or you can raise your hand in the raise hand feature of Zoom. All right, we have a. I will give you permission to speak. Karina, go ahead. Unmute yourself. Perfect.
Yes, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yes, hi. My name is Karina Sanchez. I live in East LA in City Terrace, the northern part of City Terrace. So according to your map here, this area is recommended for an industrial rezone to clean industrial. So according to the map, that means that more than 90% of our community will become this. It will be rezoned to a clean industrial. However, it doesn't change the situation here, right? I don't see an opportunity for green spaces. I don't see an opportunity for community spaces, something that we need desperately and something that we've been fighting for a very long time. So I think that, you know, for the northern part of City Terrace, I think that you all need to consider a community benefits package so that, you know, we make sure that the community is also getting what it is that we so desperately need and deserve, like grocery stores, like green spaces, community spaces. So yeah, I think it would be nice if you all internally can discuss that and that, you know, we can talk about it further.
I'd like to say thank you for your comment there, and I'm hoping that you're also willing to put your thoughts down in writing and possibly email or mail your comments so that we've got a written record. That would be wonderful. Thank you.
We'll do that.
Okay. We have a Q&A from David. How much green space will be given in the rezone area of East LA, particularly the Whiteside industrial area? How will traffic be handled?
I think right now we are fleshing out what the industrial rezone will look like, but that will be something that would most likely be, in terms of traffic, there's two parts to that question. In terms of traffic, that will be handled project by project as new projects come in. And then I think in terms of green space, that is something that we could put in as design standards. So as projects come in, we are revising the zoning code. In addition to just rezoning, we're putting in requirements in the zoning code for any new development that comes in. This is for the industrial, residential, as well as commercial. So we are listening to these comments and considering how to put in design requirements.
Thank you. And then as a reminder, once Karina, I see your name is, you still have your hand raised. When you're done with your question, you can certainly ask another question or comment, but please, yeah. Thank you. Okay, we have a question here in the Q&A from Margaret. How far in advance are environmental reports made publicly available when projects are considered?
Why don't I go to our schedule slide and we can take a look at that. Excuse me while I scroll up. So every project is different in terms of the schedule, and we have a working schedule for this process. So again, we are in that window, that very first box. The metro area plan is still being prepared. Outreach is still ongoing. It's being drafted, which is why the community thoughts and feedback is so important and welcome. So that process will continue on. We will be preparing the EIR and technical studies throughout the course of the spring and into the summer. And we anticipate the draft program EIR, which is based on the plan, and the plan itself will be available in September to October of this year. So that allows for time to prepare the plan and then evaluate the impacts of that plan. Then those draft documents, and I guess I want to emphasize again, they're still draft at that point. They go out to public review for 45, the EIR will be for 45 days. That'll allow time to look at the environmental impacts. And then it's again, another opportunity to provide comments on the actual documents. So at that point in the fall, we would be preparing the final EIR, which is includes responding to all public comments received on the document in anticipation of it being presented to the county decision makers at the end of the year. Actually, that's right, winter 2023. I hope that answers your question.
Thank you. All right, we have a question from Felix. How will these changes impact the Amazon distribution center that snuck into City Terrace Community? Pat?
Yeah, I think unfortunately, since this is all draft, and I'm not familiar with that particular application, but if they already have a complete application with the county, then they might be moving forward. And at this point through our project, because we're still in relatively draft stage, it won't be able to affect that particular application, especially if they have a complete application with the county.
Right. Thank you. We have a question from Sonia. It says, I was late. I have been hearing science, biotech, industrial zones. Are the science labs going to be animal studies in those labs? I'm not for animal science labs. Pat?
As I said, we're really still fleshing out what kind of life science laboratory. So we don't have any specifics at this point, but your comment is noted. And if you'd like to put anything in writing, we're happy to receive those comments about the kind of life science facilities or other clean industrial uses that you might be more comfortable with.
Thank you. All right, we have another comment from Eva. What type of analysis are used to ensure that there aren't disproportionate impacts on low-income or minority communities?
Yeah, I can take that.
Yeah.
So the county, through the metro area plan, so not through the CEQA process, because CEQA, that's not something that is a part of CEQA requirements, but we are doing a gentrification and displacement study that will be looked at, and recommendations from there is a part of the metro area plan development process. So as the draft plan comes out, hopefully, well, I know we will have a series of workshops this summer that are in person, and we'll probably do one virtual to talk about the plan and be able to tell you more about the analysis itself and our findings.
Thank you, Pat. The next question is from David. How will these changes affect existing gross polluted City Terrace has? How will these changes affect existing gross polluters? Oh, it's polluters, excuse me. There's a existing gross polluters City Terrace has.
I think we're still figuring out the details of our industrial uses. We are trying to create development standards and a list of uses that will be more clean. And but in terms of actual impacts of existing gross polluters, I think it might be better to look at the green zones program that the board recently approved and is going for final adoption, hopefully by this summer. That actually has a lot of requirements for businesses to clean up their facilities. And I'm happy to, if you want to send to the project email to get more details on that, I'm happy to respond to those emails and do a phone call or something.
Thank you again. The next question is from Ariana. What exactly is clean industrial? It's another Pat question.
I think well, we're working out defining that more clearly, because that's definitely come up in the minds of the planners as well as the public. People are already commenting on that. So I think one idea is just there'll be less perhaps like open type of maybe like intense recycling, or like Gus's. I know you guys are very familiar with Gus's recycling, and maybe it'll be more, there will be more commercial offices and possibility to provide more like I said, landscaping and open space and just cleaner designs. We're still working out the details, so I can't really provide much right now, but this summer we should have more information.
Thank you, Pat. Next one is again from Mariana. It appears industrial areas are only being considered for changes to alternative industrial. What considerations, if any, were made to other types of zoning for these areas rather than keeping them industrial? How have past racist land use planning decisions been factored into these decisions? Example, how were other environmental community burdens like freeways weighted into these drafts? Northern East LA industrial area should be zoned into other uses to mitigate these burdens. Thanks.
I don't think I can answer that question with a lot of details. We are actually in the process of receiving recommendations, as I mentioned, on the industrial uses. However, I do want to explain that the general plan has identified industrially zoned properties as being really important to the economic development for the county as a whole. And there is a need for manufacturing spaces, but we recognize that, we're really trying to clean up industrial right adjacent to residential. So again, please, tune into our more detailed recommendations this summer, and we welcome any ideas on the details of how to work that out. But again, the industrial lands are really important. There's actually not that much industrial lands left in LA County. So what remaining industrial lands, we're just really trying to clean up and taking it, if they're next to residential, looking at how to maybe take some of the heavier industrial and make them lighter or cleaner industrial.
Thank you, Pat. The next comment is from Felix. We want less or no industrial in City Terrace. Oh, and then how can that be made? How can that change be made?
I think I kind of went into why industrial lands are so important to the overall development of LA County and good paying. I think I should also mention that the county has identified industrial lands as providing better paying jobs than usual retail positions. But I think, again, feel free to put your concerns into writing, and we're happy to receive them and take a look at your thoughts.
Thank you. This is it says Ariana, but it's saying, sorry, I apparently shared a personal link with multiple people, so questions all look like they're coming from one person. Is it possible to change your Zoom name on this meeting? Eric, can you message me separately, and I'll type in an answer for you. Sorry, Ariana. Next question is from Sonia. Who is recommending, who is your source that is recommending what is ideal for the zoning?
So we're taking information from a number of different sources. So DUDEC is our consultant team, and we have asked them to look at all of the existing adopted county policies, including the general plan that emphasizes preservation of industrial lands. And we are also looking at, what is the latest market reports out there about industrial trends or residential trends, design, all sorts of things. And so we are just putting out preliminaries. Over the next, few months. You'll see, more different information coming out, but it's all draft, and we're also, open to if the public has things they want to offer for us to take a look at. If there's other ideas, again, we are more than happy to receive your comments and any information you want to provide to us.
Thank you. Next comment is from Felix. The problem with industrial is that there is no accountability and zero enforcement from county.
Your comments noted.
Thank you. Now we have a comment from Karina. There are examples of industrial areas in LA, like the Arts District, that has moved away from heavy manufacturing and have incorporated mixed uses like commercial and retail, housing, and green spaces. I think that we can totally do that and not have it all be industrial in the northern part of East LA or ELA. East LA.
Your comments are noted. Thank you.
Yeah, and Brandon, if I could also jump in for a quick second, just to kind of emphasize what we're also hoping to get out of this particular meeting. The scoping meeting is related to the draft EIR. So I'll just take a quick minute. The EIR is going to be analyzing the environmental impacts of the project. Once the metro area plan is in its draft form, the EIR is going to analyze the environmental impacts of that document in the form that it's presented. So what we're hoping at this meeting is for you to consider the environmental consequences of the ideas that have been set forth. The proposed project ideas that are being presented that are in draft form will have environmental consequences, and that is what the EIR is going to analyze. So also, in addition to your thoughts that you have on the metro area plan, I know you should also please put that in writing and submit that to the county. But if there are thoughts out there on the environmental impacts of the project, we'd also love to hear your thoughts on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Kristen. We have a question from Ariana. Rezoning of industrial uses is great. However, without any enforcement, any changes are minor, if any. Is there any discussions regarding enforcement moving forward?
I think the enforcement discussion is not focused on this plan since it's really in preliminary stages. The enforcement discussion is on the green zones program right now because it definitely has a lot of teeth to, and we are actually going to, I think the green zones program will be officially adopted in July and effective August. And that has a lot of zoning regulations, and we are talking with enforcement, and we are going to work with them very closely to enforce those regulations that really, even on existing businesses. Usually our regulations are applicable only to new development, but the green zones program is applicable to existing businesses as well. So we are talking to them about cleaning up using the green zones ordinance.
Thank you. We have a hand and went away. Another question from Ariana. Can you please explain the overall process This is the first draft of the EIR, correct? What is the deadline for comments on this EIR draft, and when will the next draft be released? When will you be incorporating the types of comments community members are making on the substance of the zoning? Kristen?
Yeah, sure. So I brought up the process outline again for the schedule that I think answers part of the question, which is the draft EIR. It's correct. It has not been drafted yet. It is not written yet. The plan is still, the metro area plan itself is still being drafted in draft form. So when that plan is in its draft form and at an acceptable place, the draft EIR will analyze it. So you can see, according to the schedule, we're just noticing that we're going to prepare an EIR. So we're at the very beginning stage. So there is nothing available for you to review other than the notice of preparation itself, which is available on the county's website. So that being said, we're going to draft the EIR over the course of the next several months, and we anticipate that document will be ready for public review in September and October. And at that same time, Pat, correct me if I'm wrong, but the plan itself will also be available for review at that time. So that's the general timeline. Then it'll be available for over a month, 45 days, at which time we expect to receive comments on those documents. And then it will be our job to respond to those comments and consider those and incorporate any changes that might need to be made into the final EIR. And that we anticipate being ready at the end of 2022. And then it would go before decision makers in early 2023 and start that review process with Regional Planning Commission. So I think your earlier question was also about when are comments due? We're in the 30-day window. So I think the county is wanting comments by the 17th of March on the NOP. That's the formal close of the public review period for the notice of preparation. And I hope that answers your question.
Thank you, Kristen. We responded to an anonymous attendee, but just for good measure, we'll just say it out loud here. How did you come up with a draft project without first soliciting input from the communities it's going to affect? Pat, Erica was mentioning, talking about the community outreach efforts that have been done. Do you want me to repeat that, Pat?
Why don't you repeat what's already been said so I'm not repeating?
Sounds good. So we've responded with, we've conducted the initial phase of community outreach in the fall of 2021. We are planning our second phase of community outreach in spring and summer of 2022. We will also have other opportunities for public review and comments on the draft plan and draft EIR.
So, so some of it was for from some initial discussion, as Erica already alluded to, from the public. But there were also other projects that kind of required the county to do additional planning in the area. And one of them has to do with the housing element update. So the metro area plan is kind of the implementation tool to implement the rezoning as a requirement of the housing element. And so we knew that that would be part of the project description. And then we also knew that there were things that we needed to fix from past problems that have already, come up previously through permitting issues, enforcement issues. So we knew that, and also, so we knew already some of the problems that exist just from working in the area. And we do have an internal group of planners that are from our permitting and enforcement groups that we meet with to find out like what needs to be fixed. So we were able to come up with kind of an initial list based on all these different inputs. So, but this is just an initial project description. This is the notice of preparation. So it's only like a few pages. The actual EIR will be much more details and lengthy. But I think for the metro area plan itself, just know that I think this summer we are going to be floating out as much as we can, as much detail as we can this summer during those in-person meetings and also the virtual meetings. And we're also happy to schedule time with community groups. I think some of the folks on this call already belong to very active community groups where we presented, and we are happy to go in deeper on things as we develop the major components of the plan.
Thank you, Pat. The next question from an anonymous attendee says, how was DUDEC vetted and selected as a consultant for this?
Kristen, do you know? No, I'm just kidding. No, I know. So the Department of Regional Planning, several years ago, we developed a list of on-call consultants. Often the requests for proposal method of soliciting consultants take more than 6 months to develop, and we were looking for a faster way to get qualified consultants on board. So we developed through a process, we developed an internal list of on-call consultants, and so there's I think 3 different areas. I don't know if you want this level of detail. There's 3 different areas, and DUDEC had expertise in the areas that we were interested in. And there were, I think, 3 proposals, and DUDEC did the best job on their proposal, and that's how we picked them.
Thank you. The next question from Felix is, have any of you or the decision makers actually done any on-site visits to these heavily industrial polluted areas like City Terrace before making any kind of decisions?
Well, it's not gone to any decision makers yet. That would be our Regional Planning Commission and the Board of Supervisors, and I cannot speak for them. But I myself, I have visited a number, I think all the industrial areas. I've been with the county for a while. I know I look super young, but I've been around for a while. So I have seen all the industrial areas, and we're also working again with planners in both the permitting and enforcement side. And they have spent time also in the field, and we are tapping their shoulders for their comments and thoughts as we move forward.
All right, we have a raised hand. I will allow you to talk. Please unmute yourself. You have 2 minutes.
Thank you. Hi, Pat and DUDEC team. This is Paola, she, her, ella, preferred gender pronouns. I'm a community member in Willowbrook and also a member with East Yard Communities for Environmental Justice. Thank you all for your work, labor, and reflections. I have 3 initial comments that I will also be submitting in writing in terms of what should be studied in the EIR. I think that that the study should include questions about the impacts of having the clean industrial, quote unquote, be zero emissions, and then the impacts of it not being zero emissions. I have an opinion that it should be. The second point is also studying resident retention and community stability, right? How is this plan amplifying and creating that or not? And then the third point that I think should be studied is specific rezoning in my neighborhood in Willowbrook. Once again, I think the impacts of rezoning residential area adjacent to homes. I think the study should really look at the impacts that this is going to have on working class communities of color and the air pollution and health consequences that we will suffer as a result of this rezoning. So those are my comments. And then I did have questions. I want to know how the map timeline fits with the pedestrian plan that's currently happening in my community. And also I believe in other neighborhoods like East LA, Florence, Firestone, and East Rancho Dominguez. And I know that green zones has been mentioned. And so I want to really get a better understanding of how green zones will be integrated in this plan. I know that the goal for this plan is to really make sense of all these different plans in unincorporated areas. So I am wondering if anyone has any just clear kind of connection or feedback context about how green zones specifically will be integrated. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for those questions. I think internally we're trying to get better at talking about how these things are working together. So let me start with the green zones. The green zones, that's been in the works for the last 5-6 years, and East Yards, of course, has been an important part of that work. So the ordinance is already pre-approved by the board and so county council is going through it with a fine-tooth comb to make sure we got all the legal jargon correct. And then hopefully in July, we will do final adoption. And then 30 days after final adoption, the ordinance is effective. And we're going to start notifying existing businesses of the compliance timeline. So as you may or may not know, the green zone is particularly unique in my opinion, because it is requiring existing businesses to act. Usually most ordinances apply to new development, but the green zones ordinance is going to apply to existing development. So the green zones is definitely way ahead of the map, but the map is not far behind. The goal is to get it to the board for final adoption next year in June. Right now, we're still talking through, right now I think it will be focused on new development. The plan is for the horizon year of 2035, which matches the general plan. So the focus of the metro area plan is kind of future looking. So it is a plan that will go, that its sunset date is 2035, and the EIR impact is looking to that far range. So we're doing projections for that. With the pedestrian plan, we are talking with the DPH team, the public health team, on their pedestrian plan. We actually coordinated with them for some of their in-person meetings in the fall, and we're actually starting to talk to them about when their next round of in-person meetings. So their focus though is it's much smaller. It's really focused on increasing pedestrian access in each of the communities. And so I am striving, and I hope they are striving too, but I am striving to, when I hear things in our community meetings that's focused on pedestrian access or safety or anything pedestrian related, I'm trying to pass over those comments to them as well. And then trying to coordinate and make sure that our plans are supporting each other and not taking away from what each other are doing, if that makes sense. And their timeline, I believe, is very similar to the map. So I think they might be a little bit later, but I think also they're looking to the summer or maybe fall of 2023.
Thank you, Pat. We have a comment from Margaret. East Los Angeles already has a lot of projects like Metro Train Underground on Atlantic and anticipated 710 freeway projects. Will all this be taken into consideration with how much traffic and its pollution will add to an already underrepresented community?
I can take a stab at
That's a
that.
question, yeah.
Yeah, so we have in the EIR a chapter called transportation, and it will include an analysis of the changes proposed to the land use that would result from the metro area plan. And one of the things that will be included is a modeling of vehicle miles traveled as a result of the proposed project implementation. And one of the things that is included in that modeling process is an understanding of proposed and planned infrastructure improvements that would occur and that would affect kind of public transit, et cetera. So if you have a concern or an idea about a specific project or set of projects that you know and you're aware of, and you want to make sure that they're included in what I'll refer to as a cumulative analysis that will happen as a result of the modeling that will occur for the transportation analysis. Please put that in writing so that we are sure that it's considered and that we're aware of it and considered when it comes to actually conducting the modeling that we'll be doing in that section. So again, strongly encourage you to put that in writing for us, and then keep an eye out in the transportation section of the draft program EIR.
Thank you. That is it for now. It is 6 o'clock. We were planning for 30 more minutes of, or no. So a reminder, you can raise your hand or you can ask a question in the Q&A. And we got a question. Thank you, Felix. Given the low attendance number for this meeting, other than sending an email, what other type of out was done? Perhaps outreach was done?
We had, Brandon, you might be able to answer this question too. I mean, we had an exhaustive mailing list, so it was just not an email blast. There was information gathered from other area plans, mailing lists, outreach that was conducted through the Metro area plan outreach mailing was informing this process. Mailing lists that went for the Florence Firestone was consulted, for the general plan was consulted. So it was certainly not just an email blast, as well as posting, of course, on the county's website, et cetera. So Brandon, I don't know if you want to inform the mailing list any longer, but I know we went to several libraries, et cetera.
Yeah, the notice of preparation was distributed widely, and there'll be other opportunities for comment and discussion as noted on the slide.
Absolutely. And also, if you feel like you know of a community group or someone that you think should be on the list for this project, please again email and you will be put on the list for all future notifications. So I think the goal of this really is to gather as much information as possible from the community. So if you're feeling like there's a community group that should be informed that we have somehow missed, please let us know so we can add them to the list.
We also published in the newspapers, I can't remember which ones exactly, but we attempt to pick out local newspapers that are widely read, and then also in L'Opinion. And oh, darn it, there was something else I was going to mention, losing it. But when it comes to the metro area plan and the draft EIR, we are planning to print out hard copies and deliver those to the local libraries as well, so that people, because they will be bigger documents, and so people might want to be able to flip through them.
Don't see any. Okay, we have a comment from Margaret. I think the title of LA County Metro Area even confused me with Metro that is also conducting meetings.
Oh.
So this is hosted by the Los Angeles County Department of Regional Planning and not,
Yeah, I apologize for that. We really did try to think about what to call this project when we were starting it last summer, because we're quite aware of the transit agency Metro. But this plan takes from the general plan, which divided the entire county into 11 planning areas, and the 7 communities that Kristen mentioned were designated as part of the metro area. So thus the name. So I appreciate your patience with our naming protocols, but we were trying to just be consistent with what's in the general plan.
Alrighty, an anonymous attendee says around 14 attendees for 7 communities representing hundreds of thousands of people is not enough community outreach. Have you considered a door-to-door knocking or weekly park canvassing or something else? Will another session like this be held? More creative outreach is definitely necessary. Will you consider extending the deadline for comments to do more outreach?
Yes, we understand that, this is not representative of the many people that live in the communities. We don't have the resources to do door knocking campaigns, but in terms of for the notice of preparation, we will not be doing another session at this point. However, this is the very beginning of the process for both the environmental review as well as the metro area plan. And you can submit comments on either at any point, and we'll be looking at those and seriously considering those comments. So this is just one deadline to get things going, but there'll be other opportunities, other meetings. So just if you could stay in touch with us, whether, giving us your email so that we can do an email blast, or just following us on social media. Those are some of the best ways to stay in touch. Or you also have our project email. If you want a phone call, we're happy to call you if you just send us an email, and a time when it's a good time to talk to you. Planners can reach out to you.
Thank you. All right, we have a comment from Felix. The point I'm trying to make is that a lot of people in these low-income communities don't know how or don't have the means to join a Zoom meeting. Better outreach needs to be done.
Understood. We will be doing, I think part of it has to do with the whole COVID situation. Definitely been restricted from doing in person. So last fall, when we were not as restricted, we did do some in-person outreach, collaborating with the Department of Public Health on their pedestrian plan. So you can look at both projects at the same time. And we plan to do another series of workshops this summer. So mid-July is right now what we're looking at, and those will be in person. We will hold one meeting in person per community, and we'll also do a virtual. So please, just stay in touch and keep track of what we're doing, or just contact us for any updates.
An anonymous attendee says, you keep saying that this is the quote, the very beginning of the process, end quote, but I have said that you already have a draft plan. How can both of those be true? Shouldn't you have completed this outreach before beginning to draft the plan?
We do not have a draft plan. So if I said that, I misspoke. We do not have a draft plan. We are talking about the things that will go into the plan right now. We're doing research and looking at reports, and starting to put components into place. But I literally just got the draft table of contents. So believe me, we don't have anything written that looks like a draft plan document. We have different reports and memos that needs to be assembled and reviewed, and we're still doing analysis. So it is toward the start of the process.
Thank you. We don't have any comments or questions at this time. As a reminder, you can raise your hand or use the Q&A. Maybe in the meantime, Kristen, maybe we can have the comment slide.
I guess maybe this slide, we should have put submit written comments on the notice of preparation. Right. Maybe that's confusing.
Although, no, for sure, this is definitely related to the draft DIR, but I do think if comments were submitted relating to the plan itself, that would be
Yes.
received.
Yes, if you, whatever you submit, we will look at and we'll, if it's related to the EIR, we will give it to Kristen. And if it's related to the plan, then it goes to the planners, the county planners and the planning side of DUDEC that's helping us. Yeah.
Still no comments. An anonymous attendee has asked, can you extend the March 17th deadline for comments? 15 days is not long from the release of this info. I think, Kristen, the NOP.
Well, yeah, the NOP period is 30 days. So the NOP was issued and it is kind of, it's customary for the scoping meeting to be held kind of in the middle of that 30-day window so that people have a chance to receive the NOP, read it, think about the project, and then attend this meeting, and then allow time on the back end for the formulation of comments. So this is the window that's allowed and required actually by CEQA. So we're in compliance with all requirements for that. And definitely look forward to receiving your written comments.
An anonymous attendee asked, so you're saying the statute says you can only allow no more than a 30-day period. You legally cannot extend?
No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying we're in compliance with the law, which requires a minimum of a 30-day window for public review, which is what we're in the middle of right now. So I think what I'm hearing is that you would like it to be extended. And that's a consideration that we have now at this meeting. And if you want to put that in writing for the county to consider, then please do that. We are interested, of course, in soliciting as much information as we can about the community concerns. So it sounds like that's a concern. And so please put that in writing and it will be received by the county for their consideration.
Thank you. Okay, the anonymous attendee, I'm assuming it's the same person, asked two questions. One is, who decides whether an extension can be granted? Kristen said it will be up for consideration for the county. And then, quote, put in writing to the county, end quote, aren't you the county? And
I am, oh, go ahead.
I can help. I think so I think one of the things we have to consider is just the amount of information that we need to move forward. And so if we keep extending every deadline, then that kind of pushes out other work that we have to do. So that's why I think if you're specific with regards to how many days you would like the extension for, then if it's just something like 1 or 2 days, we could probably live with that. But if you're asking for another 30 days, I don't think that would be possible, because in order for us to complete the other components in a timely manner, government is always being accused of being inefficient and dragging things out. And so that is why CEQA was created, in part to hold government to the fire and make sure we do things in a timely manner. So I think if you have an idea of how long you want the extension to be, you can put that in writing here, or you can email us, whichever. But we do have a project timeline and things have to be finished by a certain point. So we have to hit certain milestones.
Sonia says, hope to see the draft soon. This is the first time community hears about public comment.
So I'll just reflect again on the schedule. The draft is not imminent. I think we're shooting for September or October before anything's really going to be in any kind of draft shape that's available for public review. So it's currently in the process of the beginning stages of being drafted. But please, to your point, make sure that you're on the county's list, that you're being notified. You've submitted or submitted an email to make sure that you're going to be notified for all future activities. And of course, there is a page on the county's website that is devoted to the metro area plan that will post anything relevant to any upcoming meetings or documents, timelines, et cetera, that will be updated regularly too.
Thank you. An anonymous attendee asked, can you please define who the person, who the county decision maker, who will have authority to extend or not?
I think it depends again on how much time you're asking for. I mean, if it's only a few days, I can authorize a few days. But if you're talking about like 30 days, I have to probably talk to my boss, who's the deputy director in the department. And if you email the project email and ask it to be forwarded, then, we'll look at what you're thinking. And of course, I am the main project manager, so I do have some leeway, but it is restricted to a certain amount, right? Some things will go above my pay grade, but a few days is not above my pay grade.
And oh no.
Brandon, I wouldn't mind giving a reminder. I think it's a good time, to your point. We've got about 6 minutes. I think I'll leave it to Pat, but I think we were expecting this meeting to be an hour and a half. So if we could wrap up any additional comments within the next 6 minutes, that would be great. If possible.
Margaret has a comment. I don't have a lot of confidence in CEQA. A high school was able to be built without reports. Don't know.
Well, I guess to that comment, we are definitely doing a report. We're doing the most robust report, which is an environmental impact report. There's not a more robust CEQA document that can be done. So we are committed, and the county is committed, and we are preparing an EIR. So unlike the example that you set forth, and I hope I described it in the presentation, the entire point of CEQA is to reduce environmental impacts and to disclose the environmental impacts of a project to the decision makers and the public, so that when any decision is being made about a project by decision makers, they're fully informed about the potential environmental effects, and it requires that mitigation measures or alternatives are set forth that would reduce those environmental effects. And that is what you will find in the forthcoming draft EIR document. So in this case, you will have a thorough, exhaustive evaluation in accordance with CEQA requirements that will analyze the environmental impacts. Again, but if you have certain considerations that you want to make sure are addressed, we're looking forward to receiving your comments.
I put in the chat one more time the link to the documents where you can find the slides to the scoping meeting and the notice of preparation.
Brandon, does that go into, should that go into the Q&A part though, or can people
I
see what's in the,
I
people
selected
can,
for everyone, so
okay.
I believe that's. I don't see any more comments. I don't see any raised hands.
Do you want me to close it out? Okay. Thank you everybody for spending an hour and a half of your day with us. Hopefully we were able to answer some of your questions, but we're really looking forward to hearing what you have to say. We understand that your comments on the notice of preparation may also involve the area plan, and so we'll definitely be reading those, and we hope that you'll follow us along with the process. And again, this summer we will be coming to a community near you for in-person meetings. So thanks for this time. And thank you to the DUDEC team and to Marina for all the great translation. So have a good night, everybody.